From Washington, this is VOA News. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia agree and disagree about Syria. A very brief court appearance for Egypt's former President Morsi. I'm Ray Kouguell reporting from Washington. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Saudi Foreign Minister Saud al-Faisal say their countries agree on the goal of removing Syrian President Bashar al-Assad from power. But they disagree on how best to do that. They held talks in the Saudi capital Riyadh Monday, as we hear from VOA's Scott Stearns.
U.S. officials traveling with Kerry say Saudi leaders expressed their disappointment at Washington's decision to back off bombing Syrian military targets in favor of a plan to remove the country's chemical weapons. For Riyadh, Prince Saud says intervening militarily is a moral imperative.
If one is choosing a moral choice to intervene or not to intervene, what is that choice going to be? Do I let this tragedy continue, or do I help if I can?
Kerry said the Obama administration prefers a negotiated solution because the United States does not have the legal authority or the justification or the desire at this point to get in the middle of a civil war. Scott Stearns, VOA News, Riyadh.
Former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi made his first public appearance since his ouster last July, sitting before a criminal court in Cairo Monday. He did not sit very long. As VOA's Elizabeth Arrett reports, his moment in the spotlight was brief.
It was over almost as soon as it began. The trial of ousted President Mohamed Morsi was adjourned shortly into the first session after defendants began chanting in protest. Reports from inside the courtroom say Mr. Morsi, who was deposed by the military after popular protests, rejected the proceedings, telling judges he remained the nation's legitimate president. Mr. Morsi and 14 members of his Muslim Brotherhood and former government faced charges of inciting murder during protests against him last December. If found guilty, he could face the death penalty. The start of the trial was delayed because Mr. Morsi rejected wearing the traditional white jumpsuit of defendants. State media says Mr. Morsi's trial is set to resume January 8th. Elizabeth Arrett, VOA News, Cairo.
Authorities say about 50 Rohingya Muslims from Burma are feared dead after a boat carrying asylum seekers capsized off the country's west coast in the Bay of Bengal Sunday. So far, only about 8 survivors have been rescued. The vessel was headed for Bangladesh when it went down. Activists say thousands of Rohingya have begun leaving Burma, resuming a dangerous seasonal migration to escape what they say is repression in Burma. Authorities in Kenya have charged 4 men in connection with the attack on a Nairobi shopping mall that killed at least 67 people. The suspects all pleaded not guilty in a Nairobi courtroom Monday. None of the 4 being held is accused of being the gunmen who attacked shops at the Westgate Mall in September, but they are charged with committing a terrorist act by providing shelter to the alleged gunmen. Somali militant group al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the Westgate attack. Fighting between Congolese troops and M23 rebels continued near the Ugandan border on Monday, despite calls for a ceasefire from the leader of the rebel group. UN and Congolese officials say 4 civilians were killed by shelling in a DRC border town. Pakistan's government continues to insist that negotiating a peaceful end to the decade-long militant insurgency in the country is the only way to move forward, despite a U.S. drone strike that killed the leader of the Pakistani Taliban. Sharon Bain has more.
Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif on Monday renewed his call for peace talks and reintegration as a way of ending the decade-long Taliban insurgency in the country. According to official media, Prime Minister Sharif has directed his interior minister to consult with political leaders on a way forward. It was crucial, Mr. Sharif said, to be unified.
We also have to ensure that the political parties, military, and the civil society are on the same page so as to create the enabling environment necessary to tackle this menace.
The Taliban, a network of some 30 militant groups, has nominated Asmatullah Shaheen Bitani as their new interim leader. Sharon Bain, VOA News, Islamabad.
A Pakistani court granted bail to former President Pervez Musharraf for the 2007 commando raid on a militant mosque that left a cleric and dozens of other people dead. The ruling brings Mr. Musharraf a step closer to possible release after months under house arrest. I'm Ray Kouguell, VOA News. More at voanews.com.